All right, live from Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas, it's time for You Can't Brew That on Television. Now your hosts, Kyle and Bono. Here, guys.
Hello, beer lovers, and welcome to an exciting Halloween episode of You Can't Brew That on Television. We are your hosts. I am the Reverend Ryan Bono.
And I am Kyle, Captain America, the first Avenger of LaPointe.
And we are here as we are every Monday.
Just the first Avenger. If you're in Middle Eastern countries, they drop the Captain America to make it more watchable for Middle Eastern people.
Cool. Write that down for us, Rich. And for the rest of you, we are here as we are every Monday to help you bridge the gap between beer snob and frat boy. Kyle, what have we got on tap tonight?
Well, tonight, just because it's Halloween. Actually Halloween. You know, it fell on a Monday night this year, so we're good. We're going to do our show anyway. Our wives and or significant others and or their significant others, in Richard's case, are passing out candy. So we thought it was fun.
I'm my own significant other tonight.
What was that, Rich?
I said I'm my own significant other tonight.
That's right. That's what I said. Your wife's significant other.
Aren't we all?
Yes. Okay. There you go. I'm with you. I'm back.
We decided to do a pumpkin beer tonight because we thought, well, that's fitting in Halloween. We'll go ahead and do a pumpkin beer. So I ran to the store to get a pumpkin beer. And they didn't have any. So we are not doing a pumpkin beer today. But they had a fall seasonal for New Belgium. I've had this before. It's a Hoptober. If I remember correct, it was a decent little beer. But we're going to open it and see if I was right or if I had it after a few.
Okay. I enjoyed it. I've had this beer a couple times, and I've really liked it. If I remember correctly, I feel like the name is a little misleading. If you're going to call something Hoptober, I expect to be punched in the face by hops.
And it's absolutely not happy.
No, it's a great beer, though. I want to talk a little bit, and this is we're kind of shooting from the hip here. I want to talk a little bit about New Belgium itself.
Okay.
Because New Belgium is a really neat brewery. They're based up in Fort Collins, Colorado. And to a lot of people in this part of the country, New Belgium is their first real introduction to American craft beer. Yep. Through Fat Tire, exactly. And so, to a lot of people in this part of the country, New Belgium it's one of those beers. It's one of those breweries. Yeah, it just resonates. It holds a special place in the hearts of a lot of craft beer drinkers out here because it's their first exposure really to craft beer.
And that's a really neat brewery. They try to do things that are like earth friendly and power managed and everything. And that's why the bicycle you see on there is pretty much on every one of their deals. The bicycle, they actually run their brewery through bicycle power. They have everybody pedaling.
Is that right?
Yes. You may want to fact check that. I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate.
Yeah, well, it's similar. It's actually wind power.
Oh, okay.
It was the first 100% wind powered brewery in the country, in the world, I believe.
I believe so. So, pretty close. I thought it was hot wind, maybe by the breath of the people that were panting while riding the bikes and powering the plant. But
it's a really neat place. They give a Fat Tire commemorative bicycle to all employees after, I believe, their first year of service. Like your 1 year employment anniversary, they give you a Fat Tire bike.
That's got a little bit of bitterness to it. It's a little hot.
It's bitterness. Well, let's talk about the beer.
Okay.
I feel like this is an amped up Oktoberfest.
I get I almost get more of a Belgian character than a German character. Yeah, it's got some of those citrusy, like lemon zest type flavors in there.
And I was attributing that to the hop selection.
And I think that the hops accentuate that. I think it's more than just the hops because it's not bitter enough for that much citrus to be coming through.
Well, let's see what New Belgium has to say about
Let's see what they have to say about it.
New Belgium is really good about describing their beers on their labels.
And I think that's really important. Anytime somebody's going to put together a beer and they're not going to name it a beer with this in it, right? They're not going to name it Oktoberfest with extra hops or whatever it may be. They actually describe the beer. You can tell what it is when they got a clever name.
Off mic trick-or-treaters.
Oh, all right.
All right, and New Belgium here is claiming that this is, and I definitely got this, it's pale and wheat malt with rye and oats.
That spiciness comes through.
Yeah, that rye spiciness definitely kicks through. And then they say that Centennial, Cascade, Sterling, Willamette, and Glacier hops form a bonfire of citrus notes. Okay. So at least here, they're attributing the citrus flavor to the hops. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't made with a Belgian yeast, because being New Belgium, they do tend to use that Belgian yeast quite a bit. So,
bonfire of citrus
when
notes.
Rich gets back from taking care of trick-or-treaters, we're going to have an installment from the Honky for you, which I've been looking forward to.
There's 40 IBUs in here.
Yeah.
That's pretty hoppy. So I guess that is what it's at. And, they used a couple of brands of hops or a couple of, whatever word I'm looking for.
Strains, strains of hop.
Strains of hop, and that are very similar, like Centennial and Cascade, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Centennial's a much bigger Cascade, and then Willamette and Glacier. Glacier's actually, Willamette's like a mixture of, or trying to make an American version of Fuggles, and then Willamette is that, well, Glacier is in between that. It's an actual mixture of those two once they made an American version of Fuggles.
Okay, so I'm back. You guys can continue.
It's kind of the child that shouldn't have been born on the farm.
Right. Nice.
Right. Okay.
So and again,
about the ingredients.
This is a hoppy beer. It's got 40 international bitterness units, which makes it relatively bitter. There's definitely a lot of hop flavor coming through. I think it was just a letdown for me because when I hear Hoptober, I'm expecting something like Hop Wallop or Hop Devil. Like I'm expecting hops.
That'd be like
and
2.5 times that much.
Yeah, exactly. And this is enough hops to make a good beer, an easy drinking beer, something you can drink a lot of on a fall afternoon after you've had a long day at a fall festival or a football game or something like that. I think it's a great beer.
And I'm, like you said, you're not always sure that you can pick up things in beer, but that just goes to show you when you're tasting beer, especially for competitions, you're doing that kind of stuff. It's good to actually banter about it and talk to somebody else, because I would have thought this citrus came from an actual infused citrus type flavor. But Bono picked it up that it could be coming from the hops, and ends up he's right. But those kind of things can be the difference between a beer being really, really strong score and really weak score, or even just slightly ding score and not making it further.
So let's go to the honky while we've got Rich with us. And you might get some dead air after the honky's done. That means that Rich is taking care of a trick-or-treater, so please just bear with us for a moment.
Taking care of a trick-or-treater.
Rich, do you have the honky pulled up for us?
Ready to rock.
Well, let's roll.
Hi everyone, it's Honky, the iPhone correspondent for You Can't Brew That on Television, and I'm back for my first app review this season. I do apologize for my absence. Due to a breakdown in contract negotiations, I was forced to cancel the first half of my season. Untapped, a former app we've looked at, is all new. Previously, it was a Safari web app, which meant every time you wanted to use it on your phone, you had to launch Safari. Now it's native to iOS. Download it and launch it, and you'll see that it's gotten itself a little bit of a makeover. The Drink Up button, which is the most important button in Untapped, is now front and center. It's also slightly larger and yellow. That makes it a lot easier to find when you're on your fourth pint of Guinness. You can still do all the same great things that you were able to do when it was a web app. You can import your Facebook friends that are all creepy. You can see what beers they're drinking and make fun of them. And you can check into your own beers, such as Bono's a Dick. I would like to thank all of you out there that made Bono's a Dick an official beer on Untapped, because it is my favorite beer to say. If you'll recall back to my previous review, there were a couple of irritations that I had with the app. I can happily say that one of these has been fixed. When it was a web app, every time you wanted to check into a beer and use your location, it had to confirm that you wanted to allow it to use your current location. Now that it's a native app, it has its own settings for this. So the first time you launch it, it will ask you, do you wish to allow this app to use your location? Once you have firmly seated your tinfoil hat on your head, go ahead and click OK, and you'll never see this pop up again. Very important for guys like me, because I'm married and I already hear the same questions over and over again from my wife. I don't necessarily want to hear them from my phone too.
I don't know who your wife is. In fact, I don't know who you are.
The other irritation, however, is still there. If you try to check into a beer from your laptop or your desktop, it won't allow you to do that. Check-ins are only allowed on mobile devices. However, I can tell you that I tried this on an iPad, and it worked. There is one problem, though. It's not a native iPad app, which means if you want to check in, the only options for viewing the app are really tiny on your middle of your screen, or full screen, where all the words are really big. Although, now that I think about it, that may not necessarily be a bad idea whenever you're on your fifth pint of Guinness. However, if you are sitting at a bar, checking into beers on Untapped with an iPad, please call me. We really have to talk. Untapped is free. It's available in the iTunes App Store right now. Just search for UNTAPPD. Why? Because the E key doesn't work on my keyboard. If you are a current user of the Untapped web app on your phone, I highly suggest that you drop it like a Texas quarterback drops footballs and download the native app. It's that worth it. I think that should just about do it for this review, but join me next week when we take my brand new iPhone 4S and drop it in a pint of Guinness to see how long it takes for it to change its native language to Irish. Happy drinking, folks.
Oh, fantastic stuff. Everyone, please congratulate Rich and the Honky on another job well done. Those guys
We're a
never
dynamic
cease to
duo.
stop. What's that?
We're a dynamic duo.
You guys really are. You guys never cease to entertain us.
And they actually dressed as Batman and well, they were going to go as Batman and Robin, but they both went as Robin. It was a little bit embarrassing this year.
A little odd.
It was Raggedy Ann and Andy all over again.
Which is much better than Kyle and I did. We both showed up as Albert the Butler.
Did we? It's because we're bald?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll work.
So anyway, fantastic job. And guys, we get to watch these for the first time, just like you do. And so we were really cracking up.
Yeah, we were rolling in that.
That was fantastic.
And the Untapped app, I have not used the app versus the actual web version of it. And, you know, I tell you what, I kind of petered off on the Untapped thing because one day when I was out drinking and I realized, man, I've had 4 beers and I'm starting to get a little tipsy. I'm going to grab some food. I'm going to settle down and get my buzz off and then head to the house. But I got to drive home. And I realized, man, I'm just like tagging all of these beers that I've been drinking all night. You know, all it would take is somebody going, hey, what'd you drink last night?
Do you think
Untapped said you had 42 Bonos of Dicks last night. You're like, oh, man.
Do you think that's discoverable in court? Can your Untapped be subpoenaed?
Well, can't your Facebook?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it can be. Rich, do you have that information? He is.
All right, we're going to have our fact checkers go and look that up for us. But in the meantime, Colin, why don't you talk a little bit about tonight's topic? We were invited by a local homebrew club to discuss tonight's topic, and we're going to bring it to you guys first.
Sure, and what we're calling this is Intro to All Grain. And instead of doing an extract brew, which is like what you get with Mr. Beer, the basic kit, there's a way to do that a little more high-tech, or basically go through the entire process. What they do in the all grain is you use either you use grains. When they do in the extract version, which is typically what you do to start brewing, is it's liquid malt extract or dry malt extract, and that means somebody else did the malting, they did the mashing, and then they turned that into a syrup or they turned it into a powder and they shipped it to you. It's quite literally powdered eggs, right? Just add water.
And let's just specify that you can make good beer
really
using
good beer.
all extract.
Sure.
You can, I mean, there are commercial brewers that use exclusively extract. Mm-hmm. You can make good beer this way, but for those of you that want to get more into it, that want to get more involved, what we're going to talk about tonight is how to make that step from extract to all grain. And we talked about the differences ad nauseum on the show, specifically here in the last couple weeks. So let's just sort of give a quick intro to the differences. Let's just make it real quick.
Okay.
Your 3 basic levels are extract, partial mash, and all grain.
Sure.
We've just discussed extract. What is partial mash going to do for us?
Partial mash is basically doing all of the things that you would do in all grain, but doing it just a little bit and then supplanting what you're doing with extract. So you're using mostly extract, but to get some extra flavors, you use just a little bit of these grains to change the flavor. Because with extract, you either get light, you get amber, you get wheat, you get whatever their recipes are for a basic beer of that style. So this allows you to add different types of grains and change your recipe a little more.
Exactly. And then all grain. Well, let's just touch on all grain. What is it? How does an all grain mash happen?
All grain is when you use all grain. So instead of using this powder or this syrup, you're using just 100% grain and you're heating up water to activate enzymes in this malted grain. And those enzymes will turn the starches in the mash into sugar. So during that process, you convert all the starches to sugar. You rinse out the grains so that the grains release all their sugars into basically sugar water, which we call wort, which is what you make when you use a dry malt or a liquid malt extract. As soon as you dump that in the water, you've got wort. That's wort. But you know you've got to go through this whole extra process in all grain, and it takes every bit of an hour and a half to 2 hours extra if you're not doing a partial mash. I would say that's fairly accurate.
Real quick, let's look at, again, super quick, pros and cons of each. Pros and cons of extract. Your pros are that it's simple.
It's easy.
It's quick. It's simple.
Rice-a-roni, man.
2 or 3 hours of your day and you've got beer in the fermenter.
Sure.
which is very convenient for people that are busy and still want to make beer at home. You can do it. You can make good beer. Our friend the Faz, friend of the show, still claims to this day that his favorite beer either of us have ever made was the milk stout that I made on my Little Mister beer about 150 years ago in 2006.
Yeah, so, you're making these beers on these extract kits, and sometimes they get knocked by the guys who are really into the all grain, but it's kind of like, when you're trying to compare a chef's food, and you've seen the commercials, right, where the Pizza Hut brought in their food to some fancy restaurant, and everybody's like, whoa, this is great. Well, conception or preception or conception or inconception, what's the word I'm looking for? Preconceived notions can actually cause a lot of problems in that world. People will drink a beer and they go, oh, this tastes like extract. Well, you can't really taste that. If you make a beer and you boil the water, it's going to do what it's going to do.
Yeah.
And unless you're using pre-Civil War ingredients to make as extracts, you're going to be all right.
Now, if you talk with a Belgian accent, will that help with those preconceived notions in your favor?
It really will, actually. You have to
preconceived notations.
Yeah.
Try my beer. I don't know how. What's a Belgian sound like, Kyle? Yeah.
It's me, a Belgian guy.
So pros and cons, partial mash. I feel like a big pro. We all know we both know the con. I want to discuss a big pro though that I see to partial mash, and that is that it enables you to take that extra control, to take that additional step without getting the equipment.
Right.
Because the equipment, and really this is what we're talking about tonight, is the equipment involved in these three different things. All you need for an extract is a boil pot and a few cans of extract or a few bags of extract. You put it in, you boil it, you put it in your fermenter, and you're done.
Boom. Yeah.
So all grain is going to take some specialized equipment, but all you really need to do an extract batch is the exact same equipment you needed. To do a partial mash is the exact same equipment you used for your extract. Yeah, I can't talk.
Oh, I know.
The only equipment that you need. I had
preconceived notations that you couldn't talk tonight.
Exactly. For your partial mash is the exact same equipment you needed for your extract plus a net. You just need a
bag.
A netted bag.
And what
you're going to do is you're going to take...
You really need a mill, but
a mill, yeah.
You don't have to have a mill because you can buy grains that are pre-milled.
So you need a net to soak those grains in and extract those sugars and those enzymes.
And most of the time you're using certain types of grains, and especially if you're trying to make a stout or something like that, you're using types of beer, or you're using types of grain that have been highly modified and the enzymes have been burnt out of them. You don't actually need to get the enzymes to work in chocolate malts or in roasted malts. You just need to steep them and get the flavors and the sugars that are already there out of that. So you just take it to 160 degrees and put that bag in there and let her go for 30, 45 minutes and pull the bag out, let it drain, and toss it and you're gone.
So cons to partial mash.
Well, what I found is it takes just as long as all grain. It requires additional equipment in some regards because usually you have to have two different boil pots. You don't have to, but in a lot of cases it helps to have one where you're doing your mash and one where you're doing your boil. And so you end up with two different pieces of equipment already. Most people have enough pots and pans around their house where they can make that happen.
When I did partial mash, I never used two different pots. I mashed in the pot, I pulled the grains out, and then I put the extract in and boiled.
I actually did... One beer I made, and I think it was the original Brown Note, was a quasi-decoction partial mash. And I'll have to talk about that one at another later date. But I think you'd get a real kick out of how I did that one. So anyway, going back to it, partial mash is fun, but all grain is basically, okay, now you can do this. And you're talking about adding steps that they take time, but they don't take much effort.
Right.
They really don't.
Right. And I think that the additional effort involved in going to all grain is totally worth it because you take complete control of your mash rather than just controlling like a minute portion. Because what are you controlling in a partial mash? Maybe 10% of the flavor, maybe.
And sometimes that's enough because in the end you've got the hops and you've got how you ferment and everything.
Right.
Fermenting probably produces 50 to 75% of the flavor in most beers. Now there's a lot of flavors that come from something else, but if you go and make a barley wine and toss a Hefeweizen yeast in it, it's going to taste like Hefeweizen.
Yeah, it is.
It's going to be a huge impact on there. So
hey,
there's a lot to it. What's that, Rich?
We do have continuing requests coming from the chat room about getting more brown note made.
We should do the brown note again.
Yeah, brown note's a good beer.
Next up for a brown note?
Dude, we haven't done brown note or La Vida Mocha in a long time. We really need, and we. Oh, and also, for those of you out there that are interested, and I know one of you is, we were discussing yesterday the need to make a very large batch of the queso wheat soon.
And I really like that idea. And with the new system we've got going, we can do some different things. Yeah. I think we can make it work. We can adapt our old rectangular cooler and use that as well. And man, I think that'd be great. But
yeah, I mean, I think we can just make a beast of it. Anyway,
let's go on to what happens to
back to the topic.
To become an all-grain brewer, all you really need, in addition to what you have for an extract brew,
is a mash water tun.
So the simplest way to do this is a bigger version of a partial mash, but it's all of the grains in that, and that's called a brew in a bag. And Richard's got a picture that he'll toss up. In a bag. Yes, it's definitely a brew in a bag. I wish we had that song pulled up when you were talking about that. I'm not sure if Richard's
Sorry, guys, I got pulled off mic there. What's up?
Okay, we're ready for the brew in the bag pick.
Oh, okay.
And Bono wants you to play the song Brew.
It's a brew in a bag.
So,
I'll stand by.
Tomorrow night, that will definitely be...
There's the brew in a bag.
And that looks like a bunch of dirt piled in a bag.
Which really is what it is.
It looks like somebody's composting there. But, yeah, basically, all this guy's doing now is he's heated up some water, and then he's dropped this bag of crushed grains inside there, and he just lets the bag hang out because he gets a huge bag. That's usually what most people do, is get a giant bag so it overflows and you don't drop the bag and lose the grains in there. And then when you're done, there's two different ways you can do this. You can either just take that brew in a bag and just get rid of it and fill it with more water, or you can add a second boil pot. So you take this off the burner and you burn some more, or heat some more water to like 168 degrees, and then you transfer that bag from the first boil kettle to that. When you transfer that bag, you're now sparging, right? You're taking the sugars out that were not soluble in that high sugar content first wort. So,
and let's talk about that for a second, because I do want to explain the idea of sparging a little bit more. What you're doing with during the original soak, think of it as making coffee. You put hot water in coffee, and it extracts...
You drop the crystals in the hot water.
Extracts the sugars.
Oh, not that kind of coffee?
No, different kind of coffee.
Not instant coffee?
Not instant coffee.
Okay.
Extracts the flavors, extract the sugars, and then using a coffee filter, you only pour off the water that has now been flavored with coffee grounds.
Did I ever tell you how confused I was when I accidentally bought instant coffee grounds, and I put them in my coffee maker? The next day,
you did not tell me that.
There was nothing in the, I was going to clean out the filters. Did somebody, I'm looking around like, did somebody clean up my coffee grains here? But that was pretty funny.
So after you make your coffee.
Instant coffee.
Newman! You made that cup of coffee. You can still use those grounds. There's still a little bit of power left in them.
Sure.
And that's what you're doing when you sparge.
And you can if you do that a lot. You reuse your coffee. Make
exactly. So you're essentially running more hot water through the grains to just extract what's left. That's all you're trying to do is get what's left.
I'm back.
The English call this tea bagging, because when they make tea, they often reuse the same bag.
That's a very interesting story, actually. They do not. But
no, that's not right.
You can imagine what it'd be like if they did.
Again, will you people fact check? I mean, I think I'm pretty accurate tonight.
We do need some fact checkers.
We need to do an entire season of just false beer information.
of all the times that I've made things up on the fly.
We should do that. We should collect a bunch of these for our April Fool's episode.
So you want to make your first beer. The first things you're going to need are a rubber tire.
And you're going to need a bone from some sort of dead animal.
Yeah.
So let's look at what goes into a mash tun.
Okay, the next step up from a brew in a bag is to make a mash tun that basically filters the sugar out through the grains in a more distributed fashion. And the next one we've got up here is a rectangular cooler with a braided hose in there. And you can buy that little stainless steel braided hose, and you take out the rubber hosing inside of it. It's made for, I think, refrigerators and things like that to keep pressure on that line. And so you take the rubber out, and that stainless steel braid, it will filter all the grains out. So the grains won't come in there, but it'll let liquid through. And That process, we actually have a mash tun like that that's sitting right over there that we've never used.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, the mini mash, that little guy.
Okay.
And so I'll bring that tomorrow night for our demonstration there with the Cap and Hair Brew Club. But
I thought we would bring the big rectangle.
we're going to bring them all, man.
Okay.
We'll bring one of everything. So we've got, but basically the idea there is so now all the grain is being rinsed out and it comes through that one section, through that braided hose, and comes out of a spigot that you put over there.
Now, when you are going to use one with a braided hose, I'm kind of surprised that this guy is doing this because it's kind of a questionable method. The more compact the collection grid, the less space you have between the collection space and the outsides of your cooler, the more efficient the pull, the more sugars you're going to be getting. This guy, by putting one braid right down the center of a rectangular cooler, this is a horribly inefficient method.
Well, and you can fix that by building a copper manifold.
You can.
And putting that in the rectangular cooler.
Or just make a splitter and have 3 of those braids
So, Rich,
going
can
every
you
different
show
direction.
the
Yeah, so
copper
let's look at
manifold?
the copper manifold.
Which we've also got a picture of this. And this is very similar to what we've have built,
Very similar.
what Bono made. Although,
I did a lot of research before building ours, and I actually turned down a design just like this.
And the reason why Bono would have turned this down, I don't know this, but I'm going to tell right now
Yeah,
because
go
I
ahead.
know. The copper goes too far to the outsides.
Too far to the other. That's
You
exactly
want it.
correct.
You want it more focused to where it's splitting everything in thirds, or in parts.
Each of these collection grids has a zone of efficiency, and by pushing the arms all the way up against the walls, that zone is spherical.
Right.
And really, it's because it's linear and spherical. It forms like a tube, and so half of that tube now is the wall of the cooler.
So it's a linear spherical tube.
It's a linear spherical tube. No, but seriously, you're losing efficiency.
Right.
Because
what he's saying is basically you're not going to get enough sugars coming through.
Exactly.
You're going to end up with sugar pockets.
The space that design naturally wants to extract sugar from is taken up by the walls of the ton.
Yeah.
So if you took that and cinched those outside arms in maybe 2 inches each,
yes,
you're going to triple your efficiency, I bet.
And one thing is we've switched to a different mash tun, and we've been brewing with one you'll see later on in this demonstration. And we've noticed a massive decrease in our efficiency from this style that Bono built. And what we did was we took a Dremel tool with some really fine abrasive blades and cut a whole bunch of slits in there, about a slit every 1/4 to a 1/2 inch throughout this entire assembly that was every bit, 1.5 foot long, 2 foot long by about a foot wide. It's a plenty big symbol. So you got all of these areas that it's sucking in sugars from everywhere in the mash tun. It's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
That is to me, if you, the dollar for dollar, pound for pound, that's the best type of mash tun you can make. That's not in some sort of I want it to look pretty with 3 different kettles that all look the same.
It doesn't look pretty.
It does not look pretty. But you know what?
But it does what we need it to do.
It's a cheap cooler, and if the cooler gets messed up and scratched, you toss that out and get you a new cooler. And that's pretty nice. It's a lot harder to make a new mash tun out of a kegel.
So we're getting close to the end of our night here.
Well, let's talk about the other 3 methods real fast. The other 2 methods. Which basically, it's a false bottom is the next thing. And there's 2 different ways you can use a false bottom. You can use a false bottom in a plastic igloo, which is just that circular style cooler. And you can see this false bottom is just a stainless steel hemisphere, so it kind of bubbles up a little bit. Some people have them where they bubble down, depending on how their systems are set up.
And think about your zones of efficiency on this particular setup, because the false bottom is actually what is doing the extracting here. This thing is very highly efficient because the entire bottom is bringing in wort, and so it creates its zone of efficiency basically across the entire mash tun.
And it leaves about a 1/4 inch to an inch on the bottom of your mash tun where you're pulling in those sugars, and then it sucks it right back up through that 1/4 inch to an inch, whatever the false bottom is.
Very, very highly efficient way to extract your sweet wort.
And you can see this one is soft plumbed, is what I would call it. It's basically using a hose to attach from the false bottom into the adapter. Oh my God, was that Tugger or was that you?
Seriously? Do not blame that on me or the dog. You know damn good and well.
Wow, that is like onion eye tear inducing.
That is messed up.
And Bono's leaving, so I'm guessing it may have actually been the dog.
Yeah, well, I assumed it was you.
No, it really was not me.
The dog. Good lord, dog.
So the dog ate some fatty meat last night, so we can
No, I'm telling you when it's
that.
me.
Well, the next thing you can do in here is a kegel, which is hard plumbed. And this is kind of like the end of what most people will get to this once they've gotten their whole system designed.
And notice we're still using a false bottom here.
Bottom,
it doesn't cover the entire bottom though,
which is all right.
Which is fine. Not as efficient as if it covers the entire thing.
And this one looks like
you're splitting hairs here.
This one looks like the guy used a soft copper and just put an adapter on the end of it and just kind of bends the soft copper into the manifold there. Or it's already bent and it looks like he may have a quick, some sort of a like hose type assembly where it spins on there and he can attach it. Well, this one works pretty well too. Very similar to what we have. We have a kegel, but we have it soft plumbed, and so that's exactly what's going on. Man, I wish that was me earlier. That was
messed up.
That was one brutal onion fart, man. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us for our onion fart discussion.
On a very special onion fart episode.
But it is Halloween, ladies and gentlemen.
If you're going to learn something from us, it is that you don't allow your 120-pound dog to eat the animal products that you just cooked out of the cast iron skillet that is still on the stove when you leave the room.
I was gone. I thought you guys were talking about Bono.
I thought I was too.
I wish I could take credit for that.
When he didn't say anything and my eyes were starting to tear up, I really thought it was Bono. I thought he was setting me up.
I still think it's you. I'm not convinced that it was the dog.
Well, I'll tell you this right now, in front of a camera and the millions of viewers, I would definitely tell you if I farted.
All right. So, wow, this has really taken a turn for the worse.
This is a good discussion. So basically, after you're all said and done here, you've got this different types of equipment. You can put as much money as you want into this equipment. The sky is the limit on how you can upgrade and how you can maneuver everything to work, and types of manifolds and types of drawing equipment, types of tubes and bazooka screens. You can just add everything. But in the end, you find what works for you. Maybe you have an extra cooler around the house. Use that. Take it, make it economical. Go to the store, you can buy $20 in parts and you can have a spigot built. If you another $20 in parts and you can have a copper manifold built. Just takes a little time, a little effort, but
and really one thing that we like to do is we like to add a level of complexity with each brew. This is not something you have to dive into, but if you do want to take that step, if you do want to move to all grain, everybody out there knows us. You can give us a call. We'll help you out wherever we can, and we'll probably put you on the show if you do that. And then, you don't have to dive in. You can do one thing at a time and get there slowly.
And the thing about all grain is, in the end, you're talking half the price.
Yeah, that's where all grain really helps you is the price.
We've got all our grain, right? So we've got a whole bunch of grain sitting around here. We brewed a pale ale the other day, and I went to the store.
Us 10 gallons for $40.
So we got some killer deals on our grain, so we won't talk about that, but basically call it free. And so anyway, we've got a bunch of grain that was in essence free, and we've got that's going into it. If you're buying it by the pound, if you're buying it by the bag, you're going to be spending like 40 or 35 bucks a bag, which is 55 pounds, and that will last you that's 5.5 gallons worth of beer right there. Okay. So that's a lot of beer. So you're talking $5 to $6 a batch. Then you got your yeast. If you're buying it fresh every time, which is $7-8, you don't have to. You can take your yeast from another batch, wash it. You can save a bunch of money there. But so you got $7 or $8 there, and then you've got the specialty grains, which probably cost you $4 or $5 for a recipe at the most. You're maybe up to 20 now, and then you add your hops, which for a normal beer, it's going to be $2-3 for a normal beer, maybe up to $10 for an IPA. So you're talking $30 max for 5 gallons of a really high gravity beer.
You can make it once you get good at this, and really a lot of times a lot of people do this right when they start. You can make as good a beer in your house as you can buy off the shelf.
Sure.
For a tenth of the price.
And Bono, you tried the rye beer I made the other night.
Fantastic.
It's not a bad beer.
Yeah.
It may not be exactly what I was shooting for, And the first time I tasted it, I wasn't exactly thrilled. Second time I tasted it, I said, it's getting better. And then now that I've had it, now that it's got the full carbonation on it, and it's actually, mostly full carbonation on it, it's a lot better beer. So, you make these beers that people will drink that beer and go, oh my God, I want 5 gallons of that. Why don't you guys manufacture? Why don't you guys do this? And every homebrewer's heard it. You're like, oh why aren't you selling this beer? Well, the reason why is because you can't make the beer that you can sell as good as you can make the beer at home. Right? I mean...
Yeah, I'm laughing at my dad. My dad says that he used to work with a guy who would rip and then rate his rips.
He would rate them?
Yeah, he would rate them.
Did I miss
let us know if that was on a scale of 1 to 10 or like a grade, like an A+, B- type of thing.
Do you think it was on like a...
I think I know who
nose
it was.
hair burning... Like, how when you light propane and it's been going for a while, how it will singe the hairs on your hands?
Yeah.
I always felt like there's farts that will singe the hairs in your nose. So would that be the rate, like what the percentage of nose hairs were singed?
Did I miss the outro, or did you guys just go completely off the rails?
Oh,
Yeah,
we're pretty much off the rails.
Kyle, what did we learn tonight?
Well, first off, we learned that this Hoptober beer is actually pretty hoppy, and the flavors come from hops, which is great.
We learned how to jump from extract to partial mash to all grain brewing.
And we learned that Halloween is a time for fun and festivities and onion farts.
So you can think about those onion farts while you're drinking a beer, and also think about the fact that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Agitation, frustration,
I think if we weren't talking, we probably would have heard the dog fart sound that went...
Probably, man. There's no way we couldn't have heard that.
that